That's me. I'm Chris. All right, let's talk about some stuff. So Bob mentioned the Dolly 2 stuff. Well, guess what? I also have been looking at those fun images myself using the new Microsoft Designer. It's very exciting. But the whole point I wanted to talk about here is I was talking to David the other day. He made a silly joke because we were talking about a show we liked, and so I mentioned it to the Warrior Horses, and the Warrior Horses, they love to do Netflix and Nay, and they've had a great time with it. But unfortunately, they're sharing their passwords across the entire, battalion, and with the new crackdowns, they're looking for a new streaming service. So they've been taking a look, and I got to tell you, they've really gotten into HBO. So a little surprising. And I don't know exactly how such they can separate fiction from nonfiction, but hey, I don't judge. I'm the one talking about Warrior Horses on a Microsoft call, right? But when they got into it, they started to get some ideas. So they created a new site, and let's go take a look at that. So we come over to their classic Warrior Horses site that we've all got, and now they have a whole new one here. So they've created a site called the Boston QZ, right? So they're working here in this quarantine zone, and they're using this for training, I hope. Right, so they've got some information on here about how to train and new episodes that are coming out. And as part of this, they're trying to, collect information about their quarantine zone. And part of that is they need to know who of their warrior horses is there. So we want to create a list to handle some of that. So let's go ahead and create a new list. And since it is the people from the QZ, why don't we just call this the of us list? Sounds great. So we'll just call that of us. We'll create that with no spaces so that the URL doesn't have any spaces. We can click here and we have our list of us. There we go. Hilarious. All right, we'll save that. And now let's add a couple of columns to it. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to rename this title column to their name. Correct? It's the name of the warrior horses there. And let's add a number column. And we're just going to make this like their power level. That sounds exciting. We'll make this a percentage. Sounds good. And of course, that is required because that sounds good. All right, so now we've got a power column. And let's add one more here. Let's do now if we wanted to list, multiple items, right? So let's say in this case, we want to list out their special skills or their abilities, right? We want to kind of quantify that. And if we just have a standard list of those, well, then a choice field is the right way to go for that, right? So we can do a multi-choice field and we can pick all their skills out of there. But what if you've got more information about each individual skill or ability? Right, in this case, we happen to have a whole other list here called special skills. And if we look at our special skills list, right, we've got a list of skills that each horse could have. And actually, you know what? Here's a sub tip, a little bonus tip for free. We're going to make this a little easier to see. We can do this kind of thing, and that's all right, but then we still have this header up here. Did you know there are query strings? You can type a little question mark and then type in env equals, and I can say embedded with a capital E. And when I do that, hey, I lose that whole thing up there. That's pretty cool. Now, one thing to note is that if you have hub site navigation, that's still going to show up. But if we type in web view with a capital W and a capital V, we hit that, it's going to look the exact same, except your hub site navigation is going to go away. And there's even another one, which is web view list, where we had a capital L for the list, and we hit that. And, ooh, it looks like Microsoft List now. We got that purple, pink, whatever, and your icon and stuff showing up there. So those are just a couple of helpful query strings. We'll go over those again a little bit. But just for handiness, we'll go web view here just so we can see this a little easier without all that extra junk on there. But the idea is we have this list, right? And the reason we've done this is because we've got multiple columns we want to associate with each individual skill, right? So we want to know their weakness, their base power level, right? So this is a power level 3 for their laser eyes and so on. And we've got this cool little icon, and that's really fanciness, right? And we want to use that over here. All right, so let's go ahead and do this, and we're going to scroll down, and to do that, we're going to do a lookup. We hit next, and we're going to call this skills. And we're going to say from our source special skills is our list. Right, and we'll pick for the title column, and that sounds good. The only thing we're going to do here is we're going to come down, and we're going to say allow multiple selections. So this becomes a multi-lookup field. And we save that. Now let's enter a few of these guys just so we can have something to look at. All right, so we're going to say I don't know, what's a good horse name? Joel the horse. I just randomly made that up. All right, so Joel the horse has a power level of, let's say he's got 90%, very powerful. All right, and his skills are, we'll just pick at random. There you go, he's very skilled. All right, and we'll add another one, say Ellie the horse. Again, randomly picked, and we'll put 50% power for her. And again, we'll give them some random ones. Yeah, talking to fish, of course, an essential skill. All right, let's just add one more just for fun, and we'll call it Ed. All right, just that makes me laugh. And we'll do a 10%, and this guy's got like 3 skills. Perfect. Okay, so there's our skills, and now we can exit the grid view. And what an ugly list, right? Well, why don't we make that a prettier list? Well, good news. The first thing I like to do is I almost never leave a percentage field alone, just because I like it to look prettier than that. And so one of the ways we can make that look prettier is we can head over here. So if we go up here to our list formatting kind of sample site, and I'm sure David has already posted the link in the chat, or he's about to. Right, and when you head here, we've got all our list of samples, and I've shown this a number of times, but groupings is the #1 way to go find what you're looking for. And if you go by column type, you can scroll down here. We know we just added a number column, so let's look under number. Hey, we got a bunch of samples. Now, one I really like is this one by Tetsuya Kawahara. He's one of our top contributors here. He's contributed a ton of samples, and they're all beautiful. Right, look at these. Woo! Now, for our case, right, as much as I like these, I'm just going to go with the standard theme ones. All right, so I'm just going to hit this number battery, Jason, and I hit this little copy button. Wonk. Oh, something went wrong. That's strange. All right, so we copied it, and we head back over here to our list, and we go to our power column settings. We're going to format this column, advanced mode, get rid of that junk, and then we're going to paste that, preview it. Ooh, now I got power level. That's a battery. Now that's fancy. All right, and we're going to save that. That's cool. That's just for fun. We didn't need to do that, but wasn't that fun? Yes, it was. All right, so let's bring that over here. But the main thing we're interested in now is this multi-lookup, right? So by default, when you get this, kind of the standard is each one that you picked is shown, right? And it's linked to the individual item, right? We can click that guy, and it's going to open up and say grenade juggling, and here's those details about that, right? And that's cool. And if we wanted to edit that, right, we can apply formatting to this. So we go formatting, we're just going to go advanced mode, and we're going to type our own just to see what it looks like. And we're going to say, you know, it's an Elm type of div, whoop, div, and we're going to say our text content just to see what it looks like is at current field. So take whatever the value is and just show it there. Bonk. Oh gosh, object, 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 object. How helpful, right? So we can make that a little better. Right. In this case, we actually want to say, because the lookup value, there are 2 sub properties. There's lookup value, with a capital V, and there's also lookup ID with capital I. In our case, we want that value. Say lookup value, and there we go. Now we've got just that lookup value, but it's got this like semicolon and a space. That's not great. Let's do an expression. We can say equals, and what we'll do is, because that's an actually array of values, we're going to join that. All right, and we'll say a comma, and then what do we want to separate them by? We could say a comma and a space, and we'll close that, and if we preview that, that looks a little better, right? And if we wanted to do this something fancier, we could, but what if we wanted to do something like add a border around each of those, or even have them on their own line, just like Microsoft was doing, right, with individual links and so on. So those are actually individual elements rather than this just fancy text manipulation we're doing. Well, so one of the things I'm working on, I've just really started, so this is kind of the first, is providing formats that make the same as the standard so that you can begin working with it, right? Because this is harder to work with a blank canvas here. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that in, and we'll get these published. But the idea here is, let's preview that. So now we've actually recreated the actual out-of-the-box kind of formatting. And we'll just take a really quick look at that. We've just got some fancy styles up here. This just makes it so it doesn't go all the way to the top. Collapse that, and then we have our children here, so we just have one child. And the way this works is we're using a forEach. So a forEach, the idea is when you create a format for a column, this acts as a template and gets referenced each row. So each row that it gets drawn, when it gets to that column, it pulls out that format and uses this as a template to generate your HTML, right? And that's cool. And it just gets applied here, then it gets applied here. And they're each applied separately, which is why you don't get that, you know, be able to reference other lists or other list items. And then we can actually do a little template inside our template. Woo, templateception, right? And that's what this forEach is. So when you say forEach, you're saying this element right here is a template now. So what I want you to do is draw this, everything in here. I want you to render it each time we have an item, right? And we can actually read this. So forEach item iterator in current field. So what we're really saying is, this is our array. right? It's current field, so it's all those values we saw before right here. And then we're saying what you want to call each item while we're doing this. We can name this whatever we want. I usually use iterator just so I know what I'm looking at. Right, you can call this Fred if you wanted. Right, but the idea is for each one of those, that's the value. That's how I'm going to reference the value from now on. In fact, that's exactly what we're doing here with this text content. We reference it like it were any other column, and because we're in the template, it knows, oh, whatever one I'm on, yeah, that's the one. Just grab the lookup value. All right, and then we've done some silly stuff here. Oh, that's not right. Special skills. Unfortunately, with the lookups, we don't actually get their originating list, so we have to hard code that portion. But you can see we're hard coding just a portion of it here to that lookup ID. And when we do that, right, then we still get that, like, click on that and we can see, ooh, now we can see bulletproof. And that's very exciting, right? So we've recreated it. And then this is just some style stuff to make it match Microsoft styles. And then this MS link class, that's just all that's used for is that when you hover over it, it adds the underline. Ooh, okay. So that's pretty cool. But the idea is, by looking at that, we can see this idea of a forEach, and we can start to work with these things, right? So very cool. We're just going to leave that for now, so we can take a look at this. Now, we did this specifically not because we wanted, just a single list of things. We actually wanted those extra fields, right? So if we were to edit this, the easiest way to do that is we just do these add additional columns, right? So if we wanted to see that weakness or that base power, right, we could save that, and you'll see those show up here. Probably have to refresh to see them. I don't know whether that's showing up. That's good. But that's one way to do it. And that does work. The problem is it gets scattered across here. And it doesn't look quite the way we want it to look, especially right now, because apparently it's blank right now, which is interesting. Let's get rid of that. I don't know. Either way, that's not really our point. But what if you wanted to do something a little more compact? You wanted to put it all in the same thing, right? You want to do something cool with it. Maybe you want to do some manipulation. Well, good news. That's what we're going to show as quick as we possibly can here. So let's take away these additional columns, and we're going to save that. And one of the things we can do is a little trick. We can head over to the special skills, and we can say add column. And we're going to go down to the see all column types, hit next. That's going to take us to this classic guy, and we can pick calculated. Wait for that post back. There we go. And we're going to call this concatenated, because that's fancy. And what we're going to do is we're going to equal sign, and then for each information we want, all right, we're just going to bring that over. So I'm going to click on icon, and then I want to put an ampersand to say I want to just join it. And I'm going to put a character that I want between them. I'm going to use the pipe character because I think that is easier, right? So let's just do that, and then another ampersand, right? So basically icon, and then a pipe character. Let's copy that so I have to type that each time. And we'll put the title, and we'll paste that. Ampersand, we'll put the weakness, and we'll paste that, and we'll say the base power. There we go. So what we've done is basically made a string that puts all this together. Single line of text sounds good. Hit OK. Did we do it? Yep. So now we've got this ugly thing, right? But it has all of the information that we want in one field. So we can come back over here, and if we go to our column settings, we edit. Now we say instead of the title, we can actually pick concatenated, and we hit save. Ooh, look how ugly. But that's good news, right? Now we have this idea that each individual item has all of the information. So what can we do with that? Well, good news, I'm going to tell you. All right, and I'm going to do it as quick as I possibly can. So let's do it. So the first thing we're going to do is let's get rid of all this junk. We don't need all this extra junk in here, do we? Nah, we don't need a link and everything, right? We just want this idea of, for every one of these, let's just do a span, right? So we can just see the, let's do a div. I love divs. All right, so we just want to see the value output, and we preview that. All right, so now we just got the text. We've simplified things a little bit. And what we can do then is we can create a sub link, loop, which is interesting, right? So now instead of text content of this lookup value, let's replace that with children. All right, so we want to, for every one of these items, we want to draw this div that has children in it. And this child, is going to be a nested forEach. All right. Woo, forEach. That's the one. All right. And we can hit OK. Iterator name and field name is OK, but that's not what we want this time, right? We actually want this to be, we want to take it as a field iterator. And so the way we're going to do that is we're going to type in, just to make it clear, we're going to say field, not name, iterator. Again, iterator is just something, it's a convention I follow. You don't have to. And what we're going to do is we would reference the item iterator, right? And we want the lookup value, but that's not an array. So let's make an array, right? So we're going to split this guy, comma, and we know we did a pipe, right? So we'll put a pipe, we're going to split it by that pipe, and boom. And we'll say, just so we can see it, let's put our elm type as a div, and then we're going to say our text content is going to be the field iterator. All right, so we want the value of that. And just for, so we can see that we've got separate items here, let's put a style of border. Everyone does this for testing, right? 1 pixel solid red. Sounds exciting. And preview that. Ooh, look at that. So now, although it looks a mess, we can actually work with each individual field's value, and we can work with them across multiple things here. So we can start to do some really interesting things, right? And not only that, we can tell what position we're in using a nice thing called the loop index, right? So if I wanted to show you what that looks like, there is a function called loop index. And the way that works is you pass in the name as a string of the iterator. Why? I don't know, but that's what it is. Let's get rid of that extra guy. Let's preview that. And so the idea here is you can actually see it restarts at 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, right? Because we've got the 4 fields we're bringing in each time. Right now, well, we haven't set up anything to show the loop index of the item iterator, right? We could do that here as well. So if we said item iterator, all right, we can see that each one of these is grouped into those. This one has apparently 6 of them, right? So it starts at 0 and so on. So that's kind of cool. Now, obviously, don't do this. This is very strange. All right, so I'm going to grab, because for time, which I have none, I'm just going to grab this and paste that, boom, boom, and boom. So let's scroll this thing out so we can actually see it. So what we've done here is we've taken that to the extreme, and we've applied this. And again, this is a sample you can take a look at. I'm using that loop index to conditionally apply borders, right, or icons, and so on. And I've created a header, right, when it's only the first one. So I've created a little inline table showing everything I've got from the other guy, right, which is really neat. Now, here's the last thing I want to show very quickly is why you might also want to do this, even if it's a one-for-one matching. All right, so if I head over to my special skills, and I'm going to go, not all items, let's go, oh, because I've got the web view. Ah, bit me. All right, no web view. Ah, all right, now we can come here and we go to list settings. I'm going to go to my old school settings, because I'm just going to go permissions for this list. All right, I'm going to stop inheriting permissions. Bye. All right, so before I do that, I should illustrate something here, which is if I've got another user, I've got this user named Dan, right? He's logged in here. Let's refresh so we can see the Last of Us list and the list of us. I didn't mess it up. All right, so he can see everything here. We didn't save our format, apparently. Let's save that format before we forget, oh, it's still saving. We'll come back to that. But the idea is he would be able to see this, right? But if I come in here and I say, I've got unique permissions and I say by visitors, which is where Dan is, right? He no longer has permissions to the special skills list. So now when I come back, and I don't know why that's not saving. We'll just refresh and we'll reapply. All right, so boom, boom, preview, yep, save. All right, now it's saved. So now if we go back to Dan, all right, so Dan had this view. Now in refresh, he sees nothing, right? He can't see those. He can see the rest of the list. He can't see those items. And if individual items themselves had permissions on them, he would only see the ones he's allowed to see. Now, this isn't a great experience here. So what we can do is we can come back to our guy, the other guy, right? And we can come here, column settings, format this column, and we're going to go just down to the bottom, right? So we have this idea of children. We'll just add another child here. And we'll just say it's an elm type of div. Actually, let's just copy this because we're out of time. And we'll just paste it in. And what you'll see here is what I'm doing is I'm saying, hey, if you don't have anything, show a big lock sign, right? So let's save that, and let's come over here. And now we can see that he says insufficient clearance, right? And the idea is you may even have a one-for-one, right? Maybe you've got budget items in a list that are only for certain people to edit, but you want to show them in an overall roll-up in your gallery view or something. Because lookups are security trimmed, you could take advantage of that here and build these kind of little tables, add all these extra columns, and so on. All right, so let's wrap it up and be done. So last thing here is just a note about those query strings. You can check those out. If you just type in SharePoint query strings, there's actually several of these, that are really helpful for modern pages and stuff like maintenance mode and all sorts of other things. So this is the equivalent of the is dialog we used to have in Classic, right? Just remove these things. One thing to note is they do not remove application customizers, which good or bad, you decide. And then here's those samples. So that's it. Woo! We did it.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Really, really appreciate it. What was that, Mr. Ed? No, Mr. Ed. He doesn't love Joel and Ellie more because he gave him more skills. Don't worry. Chris, we're going to have a talk with Ed. All right.